On the Zero Wasted Days podcast, I want to inspire you to push the boundaries of what's expected in your life and your business, to challenge norms and your growth edges, and to go after the most audacious dreams, because I've seen for myself that anything is truly possible when you have a vision and are ready to go after it. Are you ready to jump in? Let's go. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of Zero Wasted Days. I'm really excited to actually have with me a soul sister, a friend, a business bestie that I have met really over the last year, actually. I can say all of those things, but it hasn't been like forever and ever. But the connection that I feel with Abbi is amazing. And I met Abbi, who I am interviewing today, inside a mastermind. And Abbi is the amazing business strategist and who is also the founder of Workwomb. And she's going to tell us more about it. She describes it as a glowing and growing international community of babes approaching work and life from a very sacred and intuitive place. So I'm going to let Abbi tell us a little bit more about Workwomb, but I'm also going to kick it off with one little question for Abbi. And then we're going to just go into our questions, but welcome Abbi to the Zero Wasted Days podcast.
Thank you, my love. It is such an honor, especially behind the scenes, getting to witness it being born. So it's so fun to see. I knew you when it was a twinkle in your eye. And so here we are.
That's cool, actually. I really like that because today, which you know is, and my guests maybe don't know when I'm recording this, but I'm recording this on my birthday and I'm not doing any other work today. It was just that you booked it on this day. I was like, no, that's actually really fun. I think that's a good idea to have a podcast interview on my birthday, and I'm going away tomorrow. But I recorded a podcast, a solo episode last week to air today. And it's a 20-minute little deep and personal birthday message from me. And you can go and listen to it if you have time later on. But I did talk about how, like at the beginning of this year, there were all these kind of like synchronicities around like being in the mastermind and a card that I pulled and like this full circle moment. I think I even mentioned it maybe in the mastermind around like realizing maybe one of the reasons why I'd come back to France with this whole full circle coming back to my birthland. Anyway, and then, and all of this was transpiring. And before I even knew that Zero Wasted Days was going to be born, because I didn't launch it until March. So this is the thing, that we don't know what's coming, except we are just taking these steps that are moving us towards things that can be incredible and can be beautiful. And now this podcast is everything to me. I absolutely adore it. And I can't believe that I actually wasn't recording a podcast for a long time, because I really love it as a channel.
Yeah. I love that so much. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I think that's so cool. You're right. Like you were there to witness like the kind of unfurling of it behind the scenes. And then I'm like, I got to do this. I just got to make this happen. In what I would still describe as a very kind of like a sticky time. Like it was a time when I was just, what is going on? Like I was not burning everything down, but I was just really reassessing everything. But out of that blossoms amazing things. And we were just talking about nature analogies and garden analogies, weren't we?
Yeah, totally. And the birthing of the podcast, if we're talking about nature, the planting the seed so it will grow, it's like, it can feel so huge. And I don't want to name your experience, but I'm actually planning on launching a podcast in the new year. And it can feel so just, oh my gosh, I don't know all the tech and will I edit and all these things. And then it's like, you just take the next right step and plant the seed and then it starts to grow. And it's like, I feel like that so often, I mean, in life, but also in business, like something that feels like just insurmountable. And we just decide, I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. It's like suddenly the way opens up and it's, I would say 9 times out of 10, it is way less hard than we thought it was going to be.
100%.
We're like, it's like that rollover task that never, it's like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Like that task often takes us 6.5 minutes if we just do it.
And then it feels so good to get it done. You're like, oh my God, the energetic weight that comes off your shoulders when you do that bloody thing that you're totally not wanting to do. Totally agree. I just said to Abbi before we hit record that when I'm flying to Canada tomorrow, and I have this little mental checklist because it's not that much stuff I have to go and do. But one of them is to go and plant my garlic because it's end of October here. And I need to go and plant my garlic. And then we were talking about like the timing and seasons and how garlic takes 8 to 10 months to actually grow. And this like beautiful metaphor for what it actually, it's like similar to our businesses. And it has been, it's not quite been I launched this podcast in March. So it's not quite been, 9 or 10 months, growing a baby kind of time frame. But, when you think about that little clove, I've put them in my fridge to fast track the roots, and the roots are starting to come out. And then now they're going in the ground today. And then in literally 8 or 10 months, there'll be a bulb of 12 cloves. And that's what happens in our businesses. Totally.
100%. And it's subterranean with garlic. You can't see it happening. It's the trust. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to research. I'm going to talk to people that have gardened in this terrain before.
I've saved all the Instagram reels to tell me to put it in the fridge. Like all the, totally.
And then it's, you do your best, and then you show up, and it's this hope and a prayer. And then whatever it is, I don't know if you water garlic or how that works in France.
It's going into winter, so you just leave it. Yeah.
You just leave it.
There will be little buds that will come up, and then I have to learn about what to do and when to harvest it. And
it
is cool.
Oh my God, it's so fascinating. I live in Austin, Texas. So gardening is like the polar opposite here. It's like you have to water, or else everything is like scorched by the sun, and you can't water during the day because it'll burn it. And I feel like all of this can be transposed into business, because like you could be the best garlic gardener in the world, and most of it, maybe not most of it, maybe half of it wouldn't transfer to a Texan gardener
environment
because of our environment. And so I see that sometimes when we like give our power away to a mentor, and I know Suzanne and I are both mentors for those listening. No shade to biz coaching and mentorship, but also sometimes we like want someone's formula and we like outsource our power so much that we forget, like, oh, Suzanne, I'm just going to stay with the metaphor. Suzanne's in France. What's the climate like? Like all these things, and sort of shifting, being inspired by someone, being helped by someone, but then also giving it your own flavor and your own interpretation based on your lived experience and all of it.
So true. And that is one of the big reasons why I stopped my business like in its tracks, because I just felt like it was a bit me putting out like saving energy and savior kind of vibes, where I was really attracting a lot of people who I think felt like I had all the answers for them, and the answers we know lie within us, and a mentor can obviously guide and help direct you, but the answers really need to be within ourselves. And when I realized what I was doing and was able to really intuitively shift that, the people that have then since come into my world this year have just been like, even if they have like big challenges, I've had some clients with big challenges, like big life challenges, and that infuse themselves into their businesses. It's still not like they expect me to come on to Voxer and solve their problem. They just, it's much more an empowered process and an intuitive process. And there really is a big difference. And obviously we have this beautiful opportunity to work with people like all around the world. And I'm talking to people that are in Australia and in Canada, and here I am in the middle, and it's just really interesting. But I would love to know, I describe you as like refreshingly down to earth. I really feel like what we see is what we get with you on your socials. You have a beautiful little girl. You're building your business one step at a time, consistently, like hitting goals for yourself. What do you think you would tell your younger self about what you know now?
Oh, I mean, how much time do we have? Gosh, I mean, kind of back to the garlic. It's like, girl, it's all coming. Just trust that showing up is enough. I think a couple things. One thing I've been really transparent about lately is like, I didn't hire, like Suzanne, I didn't join a mastermind or hire a biz coach until I was already making 6 figures. And I'm just like, what was I doing? And I think I come from a very DIY background. Like I'm used to just, we figure things out, and it's made me very scrappy and resourceful. And also when I think about the growth that I have had in like the last 5 years, I don't think it is a coincidence that it is also the time in which I have been greatly supported and investing in help. And I think that I don't want to say I waited too long, because that's a bit of a judgment, but I just think, oh my gosh, girl, like if you had just outsourced that bookkeeping, and my background is in holistic nutrition. So I ran a yoga and nutrition business for 13 years before I didn't even pivot. I was magnetized towards more mentoring of creatives, and here we are. But I just like, how many hours I spent YouTubing like some bookkeeping glitch in my Wave software. And I was like, oh my God, I could have just spent $500 and had an expert handle the thing. And that's so where I am right now. And I think that's also like an activation in motherhood when you're like, oh no, I literally have no more time today, that you do start to call in help, whether it's in parenting with the village, whether it's paid help in your business. And in some ways, I feel like I almost had to go through all the pain and struggle to be like, oh, we're not doing it that way anymore.
Yeah.
Because when I hit 6 figures, I was working like so many hours. And it was this like big initiation, glow up, pivot, shape shift that happened. I liken it to waiting until you have muscles to start going to the gym or something.
Yeah. Which
it's just not how it works. It's a little cliche. There's that saying, you have to spend money to make money. And I just think it was more than just running a lean business. I think there was a little, I don't know if it was scarcity. I just didn't really have examples. I think I didn't quite have examples of people really investing in their biz and like seeing that ROI. And so once I even started to see little glimmers of that, I was like, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
And now I like to joke that I just hire someone every day. I'm like, oh, yes, come on in. What do you want to do for me? I'm always like, how can I hire? And again, in personal life, mamahood, and in biz. So my business, Workwomb, our manifesto is, we know we can do it all. We also know we were not meant to do it all alone. This is a together kind of thing. And that is my mantra. This is a together kind of thing. And so I think often the antidote to struggle is community and support.
Yeah. And the community obviously is everything to you and Workwomb. Why do you think that women really just shouldn't do it alone?
For me, it's more just the energetics, because I work with, as do you, I'm sure, I work with very capable, brilliant women that like could do it all alone. But for me, the question always becomes, what is it costing you to do it all alone?
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece. It's not just, oh yes, I could have 10x'd faster had I invested in an OBM or something. Which is all probably true. But for me, it's like just the agony. And for me, like in more of a severe example, we've talked a little bit about my birth, but my kiddo was born in COVID. She was born in lockdown. And so it was like, in some ways, almost this microcosm of like my life at large, like to be parenting and like just back to Googling how to work on a latch with breastfeeding, and my nipples were bleeding and cracking off. And it was just agony. And my midwife wouldn't come in, no doula, I just didn't have any options. And just literally sitting there, I had surgery, like all of it, and just trying to figure, I'm like gonna Google how to be a mom and like basic things. What is this rash? Like just everything that you go through. And I just think in that example, there's a reason we have elders. There's a reason we have midwives. There's a reason we have doctors. And what a weird time. And I know we all have our own trauma from that time, but that was the catalyst for me, I think, in a very painful way, to just remember we were not meant to do it alone. I am living the opposite of what we were meant as a species to do. And I think coming out of COVID and returning to work, are we out of COVID? I don't know, but out of a lockdown.
I'm like coughing away here.
It just fortified that for me in a really big way. And I was always self-branded. My brand had always been my name, like Abbi Miller. So abbimiller.com. My LLC was Abbi Miller Holistic, but was always self-branded. And then with motherhood and then everything that I went through, it was truly a download in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. I'm breastfeeding my daughter, and it's just dark night of the soul. I think I've shared with you, I had a lot of health issues postpartum, autoimmune, that led to almost a disability. I couldn't use my arms. I had to keep them in slings. And I did not know that part. Yeah. I was in like debilitating pain, and it was awful. And my mom actually came in to help us because I was not able to. No, literally you can't do it, right? Like back to the manifesto. But I remember being up and it was just like the depth of despair, just such a hard time. And I remember I was laying there nursing her, just crying because it was hard and I was in pain and it felt endless, and the weight of the world and the weight of my arms and my body and all of it. And I remember I was thinking like, it was a time when I was like coming back to work. And also I had outgrown the maiden, but I didn't quite know how I fit as a mother, like within my biz identity. And literally it just dropped into my almost like claircognizant. I was just like, work, boom. Oh, I looked down at her and I was like, oh, I'm creating a womb for others. Like a
Oh,
womb is
yeah.
like this space in which you are nourished. Your one goal and intention is to be nourished and grow. That is literally the point of a womb, right? And
Yeah,
you emerge,
100%.
it's a portal. And I just, that metaphor of, oh, we want to create a womb-like space for our work. And that really encompassed like the way that I approach biz mentorship and coaching and bringing more of that feminine energy in. I know you and I are really similar. Like I love a spreadsheet. I have so many like methods on Notion and templates. Like I'm such a nerd, but I also, let's bring in that safety and that like nervous system regulation, all of it. So anyway, that was the genesis of Work Womb. And it was like 3 a.m. I was like, Work Womb. Oh my God, I love the poetry of that. And then you look and the IG handles available, the domain's available. And it was like literally a 3-second decision. I was like, this is it.
Yeah. Register.
Yeah.
Create new account.
Yeah. And the rest is history.
Are you a generator? In
I'm an MG.
MG, yeah. When I get a download, I'm like registering the IG handle, like before the thought has even actually fully processed. I'm like, got the handle.
Yeah, it's real now. It's real.
It's real. Zero wasted days. I had to go and buy the domain name actually off some company because they had it parked somewhere. I think it only cost me a couple $100, but anyway.
Oh, that's
cool. Yeah. And obviously fast forward to now, I would love, like in that same vein, like we've come a long way, obviously from 20 when that pain in your life. I would love you to describe your average week now and give us an insight into how you juggle it all with your husband and your business and your daughter, Wilhelmina.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I know you mean like, how do we co-parent? But it sounds like, how do I deal with him? Because usually like, because Suzanne, no, I know, but Suzanne and I were in a mastermind and my husband would he knows when I'm on
walking topless, hand you a salad.
That's like my life, a topless hunk bringing me food. It doesn't suck, but he knows when I have client calls and when I'm like, oh, this is for me. Like I'm meeting a friend or I'm in my mastermind, and he knows. And so that's the time that he always just comes in and heckles me.
But in all seriousness, I think you guys do it well. That's why I think it's so interesting to see the kind of like behind the scenes of, he has a professional job, you have a professional job, you have really good boundaries, I think, with your calendar is also like chock-a-block.
Yes.
And obviously daughter as well. And then I really admire and think it's inspiring, like the times that you take off for holidays and all that kind of stuff. I just love people to get a little bit of the behind the scenes.
Oh my God, I love talking about this. It's so fun. So I work 20 hours a week. And my hubs and I both work from home. We both pivoted our businesses during COVID to be completely virtual. And it's been such a godsend. Honestly, for me, I always worked globally, but for my hubs is a psychotherapist and he now does coaching as well. So he can open up to see more people out of state. But yeah, it's been wild. We just always had a COVID schedule because initially childcare wasn't an option. So it was like, all right, I work mornings. You work evenings, we tag team, we're ships in the night. And it really worked until it didn't, because my daughter was living the dream because she's getting full-time mom, full-time dad. But then suddenly I'm like, who's that hot guy that I just saw like a glimpse of in the hallway? It's like, I never saw him and it was just not great for us. So we've shapeshifted our schedule. We have this amazing preschool. And so now we're in that season where we get to actually see each other and work similar hours, which is great. But anyway, so I work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So I work 4 days a week and I work 10 months of the year. So I could almost go macro to micro. So the macro, I take July and December off. So I work 10 months of the year. And then within a monthly cadence, I always take off the first, usually it's the day before I bleed and the first day I bleed. So I manually go in with my cycle and just block those. So I'm not bookable. And if I'm feeling good, I'll do admin and do some behind the scenes, but I wouldn't record a podcast that day. It's just I'm not going to feel great doing that. So that's like a kind of on a more micro scale. Those are 2 days that I block off. And then weekly, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then within that, I have specific hours that are like, honestly, very rigid because of my childcare. They're just hard and fast. I'm off work at this time, like the end. And that ends up being 20, 22 hours, some weeks, depending. But that's my schedule. And it's so fascinating, like just talking about like this initiation of motherhood, because when my daughter was born and I started working again, it was like, suddenly I had And also because of my hands, I really needed to hire out more stuff because I just couldn't play on Canva anymore. I was like, I had on top of autoimmune stuff, I also had mom thumb, which is like tendonitis in your thumb. I just was like, I had no business being on a computer. And so it was that reality of like, all right, if you're coming back, you're going to have to be supported like you never have been. And so I really grew my team and invested in really incredible women that still support me to this day. And that affected my rates, right? Suddenly it was like, oh gosh, my monthly outgoing has tripled. So my rates need to triple. And so that has all informed everything and then been a piece of the how many hours do I work conversation and all of that.
Yeah.
That's
what you say. I think it's so neat for people to see that kind of transition, obviously, and everybody's lived experience through COVID was so different, right? My experience through COVID was very different to yours, having a child, then the whole work juggle thing, just completely night and day, and how that has then actually, that's maybe like a little silver lining that's come out of COVID, because it has really dictated how you guys plan your days and hold your boundaries. And I would, and then I also really just love what you just said around how like you block days around your cycle. I talk a lot about that with my clients, and just around how our energy like ebbs and flows and how we can't always just be on. Are there any things like seasonally, like we're coming into, I know maybe Texas doesn't have as, dramatic 4 seasons in a year type stuff, but do you do anything like seasonally coming into the US is going to have Thanksgiving and Christmas where you will, and is December this one of the other months that you take off?
Yeah. July and December. Yeah. If it's a public holiday and the preschool's closed, we'll usually say, okay, are you taking the day off or am I? My hubs and I, we just flip a coin with that. But yeah, seasonally, I don't really have any other big breaks. I tend to flow, but I say I take 2 months off, but it's actually a little longer because it's Thanksgiving through the new year. So it ends up actually being about 6 weeks. And then July is the summer off.
And that's all you're off. Like you delete Instagram. Like you're not.
I delete Instagram. We used to like schedule content. And then I was like, no, I'm off work. Let's not pretend that I'm working. And even though my business has grown to be more than just me, I almost don't want that. I want to also be an example of you're allowed to just take a month off and have no content and whatever, fuck the algorithm. Like I'm just not online. And we have an away message. If you DM me that month on IG, that'll say, hi beauty, thank you for reaching out. I'm offline. If you need help, and it has my McKinley, my OBM's email for anything urgent. My team does work. So they take different days off than I do. So they are still holding down the fort. And then one thing that has shapeshifted is historically, I like delete Instagram. I literally I don't keep any email apps on my phone anyway, but I delete Slack. Like I am off, and Slack is how I talk with clients. But now I run a community called Mom Club, and it's like a global community of mama entrepreneurs, and it is a membership. And so my other clients, when you're a one-on-one client, we put in the contract, like if we're working together for a year, it's really 10 months within a contract. But for Mom Club, I have, what we'll do my months off is I'll pre-record a training for them. And I'll bring in a really juicy guest coach and speaker. So there'll be even more that month, just less Abby. And then I will jump in for one call. So that is, I have bent the rules a tiny bit with the membership. So I want to see, and like jumping on for one call is different than being on 6 calls a day. So
and that continuity for a membership makes sense.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm just jumping in here to tell you all about my brand new free resource that you guys are just absolutely gobbling up over on social media. I didn't want to hold it back from you here on the podcast, so I wanted to tell you all about it. It is the Life First Growth Model, and I am unveiling and unpeeling all of the details from behind the scenes on this methodology that I teach and coach and mentor my clients with. It is a completely redefined way of doing life and business that is backed by research, science, and client studies, and I know you're going to love it. I am going to drop the link inside the show notes or wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. You can also go to my website, so SuzanneActison.com/lifefirst, and you can download it for yourself.
And like this podcast and everything that I do is about helping women see that they can run their business the way that they want to, take those 2 months off a year and learn ways of going after, still being able to go after those big dreams, work 20 hours and quote unquote, have it all. How would you say, obviously you described a few things about what you're doing to do business differently than what's expected. are there any other things that you're doing differently that are helping grow your business, but also like why clients come over to you? Like, what's your unique thing versus going to all the other biz strategists out there?
I love that question. Are you my messaging coach? Oh my gosh. A term that I like to use is intuitive self-bossing. And that term that we're actually trademarking is we are our own bosses, right? We're self-bosses. And sometimes I joke in my work that I'm like a rent-a-boss because I work with women, female founders who, you know, if they don't have like a board, they look up and it's just them. And so it's like getting that support, with the rent-a-boss. But so I think that when you are a self-boss, whether it's a side hustle or an empire, I think that it can feel really lonely. And there's these two things that we need, right? It's like we need the community, whether it's a mentor or a mastermind or something different, but it's like we need that community, we need that reflection. Like I was saying, like even starting to see women invest and hear, like to meet with biz owners and be like, how much do you spend a month on ads? And be like, oh, you're just comfortably telling me you spend 12 grand a month on ads. And I look at what you're making and I'm like, oh, thank you for giving me that example. Instead of, oh my God, can I spend $99 this month on an ad? It's okay, calm down. So just that getting to witness other biz models and other ways of doing things outside of our own like narrow worldview. So I think the community piece is huge, but then with the self-bossing, like I call it intuitive self-bossing, because I also believe that our body is our OG biz coach. Like our body knows what we need. And I think so often, like you're saying with the term strategist, because I know sometimes it's like, oh, you're the savior. Oh, give me your strategy. And sometimes I have clients laugh at me because I'll answer their question with a question, because so much of it is space holding their own intuition and giving them space to speak it, to feel it, to even hear it. And so listen, I'm a junkie for templates and methods and strategies. And also if we don't get quiet and connect with our body and listen, we cannot grow. And quite literally for me with my hands, I'm actually having a flare right now. And it's like just the simplicity of my hands hurt. I need to lean on my team more and take more ice breaks.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell me that. That's my body being like, girl, like, you know, and that discernment, whether it's that your kid's sick or you're stressed out, we all have our own hurdles. And so I think that what like the doing it differently to me is that the thing that we view as an impediment is often our salvation.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not wishing chronic pain on anyone. However, I think that when we are met with something like chronic pain, I actually have many clients with autoimmune conditions that take them out. When they have a flare, they are out of commission. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we need people talking about this. Like, how can you build a business that if on Tuesday you wake up and you're gone to the world, that things can still float? You have the systems, you have the team, you have automations, you have contracts and client expectations that you're allowed to be a human with a body. So for me, the somatic piece is so huge. I think just being someone with autoimmune stuff happening to not have everything crumble because of it and to actually have it thrive not in spite of it, but because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of it. Thanks to it.
Yeah. Truly. It's like, I can't be the DIY girl. Not only do I not have the time, we co-sleep with my daughter. Once she's down, it's not like I can sneak out of bed and do 2 hours of work. It's like, we're just done. The day is over. Maiden Abby would have gotten up and, just finish these things. No, you can't. So somebody else better be doing it for me. So it's like, 100%. I think the delegation is huge. And I get back to the question you asked earlier. It's I didn't need to wait until a crisis to delegate in the way that I do now. And I would say that to anyone listening too, if you're seeking support, to trust that and honestly hire before you're ready.
Yeah. That's a beautiful advice. And I think it's just so empowering and inspiring for other women to hear different ways of how people are setting the tone, setting the pace for their own business, given their other things going on in their life. And that's why I think it is so important for us to be able to create a business that is the means to us being able to put that life first. You can put life first and have the business set up so that on that Tuesday when you wake up and you got a flare and you can't work, then that is life. That's the challenge. It's the same thing with kids. There were like calls left and center in our house last week of he's twisted his ankle, he's vomited at school, he's done that's life. Those things aren't going away.
Yeah. No, they're not.
So if we have this business that can support us in spite of all of those challenges, it just makes it enjoyable and less stressful. Yeah. And so we know that connecting and having conversations and this community aspect of our businesses is just so important. And I always say to my clients that connecting equals conversations equals sales, really, at the end of the day. That's where sales will come from. Yeah. How would you say you have grown your business? Would you say it's partly through community? What have equated sales for you?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So I teach a lot of visibility practices in my mastermind and mom club. And I just think, especially for those of us running primarily online businesses, to think outside the box. And I really believe in selling how you serve, right? If you're a poet, please let me hear and read your words. Yeah. And if you're a painter, Instagram and Pinterest are going to lend themselves well to your work, right? So I really believe in selling and showing up how we serve, and also doing that and thinking about connection. I think sometimes we forget that too, even like on Instagram, like there's a human holding their phone right now.
Totally.
And we just think of it as numbers. And instead of like, it is a social media app. Be humans first. Yeah. So yeah, I think the social piece is huge. And I love being in spaces where I'm just like there for me. I went to this really beautiful conference last week, and shout out to Amelia and Joseph at Runga. And I just met incredible humans. I wasn't there to market myself. I was just there to go to this really cool health conference. And I left connecting with incredible women that are potentially seeking to work together, because organically it's, what do you do, by the way?
That's
you know?
Right.
So
interests, like-minded people. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And especially if you're self-branded or you're a founder in early stages, you are your best marketing employee. You are the best marketing employee you'll ever have when you're at the grocery in your pajamas, when you're at the DMV, and when you're speaking on a stage. And I think sometimes we think, oh, I'm turning it on or off. And I that's been like a fun delight of mine, just to be in the world. And I'm always like, I swear I get more leads when I'm not in a business setting.
No, when I go away for 10 days is absolutely when I'm like that. I'm leaning right back. I'm not selling. And leads come in, questions come in, and it's just that's just energetically the way that it works.
Totally.
Yeah. Thank goodness. I like it when that happens.
Yes. Same. Yeah. So and also we hire people, like, especially you and I are in service-based industries. And fair enough. If I'm buying a pair of shoes, I'd love to know the story of the brand. But also it's like, if the founder's like the coolest person in the world, that's probably going to lead me to be more interested in buying the shoes.
So true.
But in a service biz, it's everything. Who Googles a therapist? Most people ask their dear friends for referrals because we want to know the energetics. We want to know the personality behind the human. Yeah. And so I think just remembering that existing in the world and like being a good human is literally foundational for like marketing 101.
Yeah. And it's not just about building and growing a business. It's a brand, right? Like there's a brand here, and to create that connection with your brand is important. Like everything from customer experience right through to how people engage with you on social media. Like it's all part of, and understanding that visibility bit around story. The more that I tell about my story, the more people lean in. Sometimes I'll get people adding to themselves someone added themselves just recently to my wait list for my mastermind. And I went and had a little look because I didn't know the name. Sometimes you'd see people that you know, and I looked and I had just done a post the day before about my former retail store, and she was a retail store owner. And I was like, Shay, there you go. See, like total story. And so there are those parts of your story will relate to people. And I can't tell you the number of clients that have come to me, like just travel and adventure is a big thing. Moms, obviously, interior renovators and people who see what we've done with renovating our home, upping and moving. They wanted to do something similar, get in a caravan and go around the US or around Australia or whatever. So many of those like personality things that are really important to that golden thread to weave through our brands and our messages, because that creates that emotional connection, right? Like creates that something that is different to somebody else, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally. Like Kate. So Suzanne and I were in Kate Scudder's mastermind, and she's a mama, and she also is like a crunchy mama, and I think plans to homeschool. And I was homeschooled, and we want to find a way that we can do some version of homeschooling or like some kind of alternative school or something for my daughter. And I was like, oh, just even that little piece. Oh, you're going to understand that I don't want to just put my kid in like full-time preschool and then full-time daycare after that so that I can work a 10-hour day and slay and make 7 figures. No, that's not ever going to be my reality. And so it's like, yeah, you never know what piece of your story, what piece of your lived experience is going to draw someone to you or make them feel safe with you, or that their desires have a home with you. Yeah.
Because it's about them being seen, right? Like they want to often people see themselves in you or a former version of you. Like we're often speaking to that former version of ourselves, like the number of ex-corporate people that come my way. And actually it's interesting because more and more I do attract, and even though I still, am I middle-aged? I'm 48 today. I attract more, I'm like a 45 plus woman. I can definitely see I attract more of a mature person. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I'm still resisting that I'm that age.
You don't use that term. You can just say you're big. My 3.5-year-old, she keeps asking me, my birthday's in a month, and she keeps asking me how old I'm going to be. And I tell her, and she says, wow, you're going to be so big.
Oh, bless. Oh, I'm like, because we say that to her. You'd say that to her, right?
Yeah. So because she's 3.5 now. So she's so big. Yeah.
She's so big. When's
big is a compliment at 3.5. I hope I don't know the day in which it becomes an insult, but it is currently the best compliment.
My son just turned 16, and I think it just continues. I don't know, maybe in your 20s sometime when you're like maybe 30, over 30 might be I want to go the other way. I want to go the other way. And big is like and so with one little beautiful girl, and I'll never forget her name because she's the same name as my auntie. I know that potentially international travel might not be so much on your radar, but I do know that adventure is still something that you stoke in your own way. It is one of my core values, and I always ask my guests as the final question, what adventure means to you.
Ooh. My first thought with that was the mind state, not the geography. Just like you feel adventurous when you're like delighted. I can feel adventurous at the farmer's market when there are new vegetables I haven't seen. I've never seen a radish that color. You know what I mean? You're like, oh my God.
Like that.
Yeah, your beet earrings. Yeah. And that has shapeshifted for me as someone who up until motherhood was in a different country every month. And that's a little exaggeration, but I ran 3 or 4 international retreats a year and then would stop by a couple countries on my way, very mobile. And so now I think, and we're getting there. My daughter's learning to love to fly, which is a really new unlock for us. And we have she has her passport. We're doing our first international. We're just going to Mexico, but we're going to go in a month. So already we're doing short flights to get more comfortable before we can go big. But
you'll rock it. I could see you guys will be fine. I've done 3 boys on my own. You'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine.
The first few flights she had, I don't know, can a 3-year-old have a panic attack? But it was, she was almost hysterical. So we actually didn't travel for a year and something unlocked in her. And now she's, I got my headphones. I got my playlist. I'm busy. Don't talk to me. she's loving it. So we're like, oh my God, thank you. So just in this season of life, I think it's more the headspace. It's the way of living. It's the finding things that make you feel curious and excited. And there's that beautiful Howard Thurman quote, something along the lines of, don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And so I think
I love that.
I just love that quote. Yeah. So I think there's just a piece of it that in those, in mom life, the micro moments of finding the joy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. And it is really everything in our businesses. The more we can find the things that truly do make us feel alive, then they don't become a chore. It doesn't become work. It becomes a joy, and it becomes the things that magnetize people to us, because we're just in that vibe, right? We're in that frequency of joy, and I love that, and aliveness. I love that aliveness.
And I think also a piece of me taking 2 months off a year is, I think some of it is I just love what I do, and I'm an all-in kind of person. And so, I'll work a little less. It doesn't work for me very well. It's in my nutrition days, we would talk about if someone was more of an abstainer or a moderator, which is a Gretchen Rubin model, if you know her work. And if someone is trying to eat less sugar, there are going to be folks that are oh, I just don't, I have to cut it out. I'm sugar free. I just can't even, it can't be in my house. Sugar is dead to me. Like I have to fully abstain. And then there are folks that are like, and the idea of moderating is like anxiety provoking. And then there are going to be people that are trying to cut out sugar. Abstaining sounds like prison. And they're like, okay, no, I just need to like moderate and have a little less and have, so we have different ways of being in different parts of our life. And I find for me, for work, I have to just like abstain. I have to be like, I am off work.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I just get sucked in a good way. I'm like, oh, and now I'm going to do this. And now I'm going to do this. Suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I'm just doing it. And so I work really well being very boundaried, and also just with this season of life and motherhood, just being like, I'm on work, I'm on the clock, I'm off the clock. That really works for me. I think before motherhood, I was very flowy. I would check a message and I have a client that I have a 3-hour break. That really worked for me.
And that worked.
It does not work for me now. Why was I saying that? Oh, I think that's the abstinence, the July and December, being off work. It gives me that opportunity to like, just not look at the clock, have a day where I lose track of time.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I think that feels adventurous to me too, no matter where I am. And we often do travel during those months, but to just, that's like, I love my work, but the one piece that I love about not working those months is really that piece. It's the piece of, I'm going to go wander in a bookstore. And if I stay for an hour, it's okay. If I stay for 2, like I'm not time freedom. Yeah.
And that would be an absolute luxury for some people to actually think that I could step away from my business. And I just, it's so inspiring to know that you created that for yourself and it works. You're a good example to people to see that it actually works. I think I'm like more of a moderator, both on the sugar thing as a candida sufferer and as my work style. And also just the rhythm of our life here in France. And I didn't used to be, because I was like all in burnout. And I think it's just because of that. I'm good at moderating, and I can chill in my pajamas until 2 o'clock and do some stuff in my bed. And then we have a podcast interview, and it's just, the simplicity actually of living here, where a more simple way of life is nourished in France, has really changed the pace for me. Yeah.
I love that. I do want to mention, since this is going to drop next week, I have a program called Break Your Biz. Yeah. And it is a training where I shared my exact method of how I take a break from my biz. And it's literally how I make 6+ figures, taking 2 months off a year. And it's a really fun training that's going to be happening next month. So I'll give you info.
Yeah. And so tell us a bit more about it. And then also you can tell us, where do people find you and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a really beautiful way to finish off.
Yeah, totally. You say where to find it? Is that what?
So Break Your Biz, is it like a virtual thing? It's
a one-day training. It's like
a one-day training.
Couple hours. Yeah. It's really focused. Yeah. I think it's 2 hours long. I'd have to pull up the date. I don't have it on my brain. I think it's November 14th. And yes, November 14th. But it's all about that. It's how do you intentionally weave breaks into your biz? It could be macro. I take 2 months off a year. It could be micro. How do I take off my bleed? I have someone on my team who takes off every like equinox. She's created her own holidays. I want to take off equinox and solstices. Screw federal holidays. I want to do, So it's like just choosing like, what's your cadence, and are you a moderator or an abstainer? I think people that are more curious about, it's funny to say abstinence in relation to my work. You know what I mean? Really having that like total offline energy. So it's really talking about how to get supported, how to set things up so that you can really step away in any way that you want to.
That's so cool. Yeah. Okay. That's really great. Fun. So if you can send me the details and the link and stuff, then I'll make sure that gets into our show notes. Yeah. And then otherwise people can find you where?
Workwomb.com. Workwomb.com. My IG is workwomb. And I have 3 ways that I work with people. One is one-on-one mentorship. One is Mom Club, my global community. Which is really, I joke that it's like a mullet. It's like biz in the front, kids in the back, because it's definitely a biz coaching space. It's definitely about professional development, and we're all running businesses and running lives as mamas. So there's that flavor and that influence and those great joys and limitations and realities and vomiting people and all of it. We're just like, we're here for all of it.
On your shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. We're like, we're all probably going to see my boobs. It's fine. We're just all doing. But so that's Mom Club. And then my mastermind is currently enrolling as well. And that's a 6-month container that's really high touch, really connected for folks that want more of that sisterhood strategy and like amplification of their dreams. And
all of it.
So good. So good. I loved having this conversation, and every conversation that we get to have where we could just pull things apart a little bit and get connected. I think I'm just the luckiest with this podcast and channel that I just keep on getting to connect with super cool people, and you're obviously one of them. Thank you for taking part with me today, and thank you all for listening here today.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Zero Wasted Days. I truly hope that you found it to be valuable and inspirational as you create and you grow your own business and work towards living more life first. I would love you to subscribe, to like this video, and of course, if you have any comments, drop them in here below. Also, if you tag me on socials, I would love to get to know you. I love connecting with my audience, so be sure to tag me at Suzanne Actison or at @ZeroWastedDays_, and I will see you inside the DMs as well as here for the next episode next week.